Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Royalty USA. I am James Carter, and today I want to ask you something. When you come back from a trip that changes your life, not a holiday, not a vacation, but a trip that genuinely shifts something inside you, what do you bring back? What do you carry home in your heart that was not there when you left? Princess Catherine is home. She is back in London with Prince William and George and Charlotte and Louis. And I can only imagine what that conversation around the dinner table sounded like last night. The children asking their questions, William listening with that quiet pride he always has when she talks about her work, and Princess Catherine trying to put into words something that perhaps cannot be fully put into words at all, because what she brought back from Italy is not a souvenir. It is not a policy document. It is not even a plan, not yet. What she brought back from Italy is a vision. A living, breathing 70-year-old proof that the world can do better by its children, and she has seen it with her own eyes. She has held it in her bare hands, and now she is going to spend the rest of her life making sure Britain sees it too. Today I want to tell you exactly what that vision is, what the Reggio approach actually is, where it came from, why it works, and why, according to one of Britain's leading education professors, Princess Catherine's visit to Italy may be the most important thing that has happened to British early childhood education in a generation. These are real facts from real experts. This is the secret she brought home, and it is going to change things. I genuinely believe that. So stay with me. Let us start at the very beginning, because the story of where the Reggio approach came from is one of the most extraordinary stories I have ever come across. And it begins not in a school or a university or a government building. It begins in the rubble of World War II. The year is 1945. The war is over. Italy is rebuilding. The city of Reggio Emilia, a center of fierce anti-fascist resistance throughout the war, is picking itself back up from the wreckage of 20 years of Mussolini's authoritarian rule. And a group of mothers, ordinary working mothers, look around at the world their children are going to inherit and ask themselves a question that changes everything. How do we make sure this never happens again? How do we raise a generation of children who think for themselves, who question authority, who are creative and compassionate and free? And here is the part that stops me every time I think about it. Those mothers, with no government funding, no official support, no institutional backing of any kind, decided to build a school. They sold the metal from a captured German tank to raise funds. They carried stones from the river by hand to reconstruct a building. They built something from nothing, with their own bodies and their own determination, because they believed that the future of their city, and of Italy itself, began with how they chose to educate their youngest children. That school became the seed of what we now call the Reggio approach. And over the following 70 years, under the extraordinary guidance of an educational visionary named Loris Malaguzzi, it grew into something the entire world now studies and tries to replicate. From Canada to Japan, from Australia to the United States, educators fly to Reggio Emilia from every corner of the globe to learn from what those mothers built in the ruins of a war. So what is the Reggio approach? What is the actual secret? Let me explain it as simply and clearly as I can, because once you understand it, you will immediately understand why Princess Catherine flew to Italy to see it, and why she is bringing it home. The Reggio approach starts with a belief, a fundamental, non-negotiable belief about who children are. Most traditional education systems, including Britain's, treat children as empty vessels, small people who do not yet know things and must be taught them. Sit still, listen, repeat, follow the curriculum, hit the targets, pass the tests. That is the system most of us grew up in. And for many children, particularly the youngest, the most curious, the most creative, it does not work. It switches them off. It tells them their natural instincts are wrong. It replaces wonder with compliance. The Reggio approach says something completely different. It says children are not empty vessels. They are capable, curious, creative human beings from the moment they are born. They have what Loris Malaguzzi called 100 languages, 100 ways of thinking, 100 ways of expressing themselves, 100 ways of understanding the world. through movement, through art, through music, through building, through stories, through questions, through play. And the job of the teacher is not to fill those children with information. The job of the teacher is to listen, to watch, to follow the child's curiosity wherever it leads, to be a facilitator, not an instructor. And the community, the parents, the businesses, the neighbors, the whole city is part of the education, not as an afterthought, as a cornerstone, because Reggio Emilia believes that it takes a whole community to raise a child who is ready for the world. Now, I want to tell you something that Professor Peter Moss, an emeritus professor at University College London's Institute of Education, one of Britain's leading experts on early childhood education, said this week in response to Princess Catherine's visit, and I want you to hear this clearly. He said that Princess Catherine's visit to Italy is significant for Britain because the Reggio approach is not recognized in British national educational policy. Not recognized at all. In Britain today, most early childhood programs are run by private organizations for profit with targets and metrics and standardized outcomes that have very little to do with what the science of child development actually tells us children need. Professor Moss said that Reggio developed in a very particular time and context that is hard to replicate. He pointed out that the Reggio approach was born as a direct response to 20 years of fascist authoritarian rule, as a community's answer to the question of how you raise free-thinking, compassionate, democratic human beings. And he acknowledged that Britain cannot simply copy and paste what Reggio Emilia has built over 70 years. The roots are too deep, the community involvement too complete, the philosophy too embedded in every corner of city life to be transplanted overnight. But here is what he also said, and this is the part that matters most. A princess coming to Reggio Emilia, with the world's cameras following her, with the global press watching every step she takes, shines a light on this approach that no academic paper, no education conference, no government report could ever match. She makes people ask, what is this? Why is it working? Why don't we have it? And those questions, asked by enough people, loudly enough, persistently enough, are how change begins. And Princess Catherine is not waiting for permission to ask those questions. Remember what her spokesperson said just this week. They said the princess is keen to explore how globally we can identify positive, hopeful solutions to today's toughest social challenges by investing in the extraordinary impact of early childhood and prioritizing the early years with the same urgency as climate change. The same urgency as climate change. She said that, a future Queen of England, on her first international trip since beating cancer, standing in a city built by mothers who sold a German tank to educate their children. Now I want to paint you a picture of what this could actually mean for British children, because I do not want this to stay abstract. I want you to feel it. Imagine a nursery school in Birmingham, or Manchester, or a small town in Wales, where the children are not sitting at tables being drilled on letters and numbers before their brains are ready for it, where instead they are outside, in a garden, using magnifying glasses to look at bugs in the grass, where the classroom walls are not covered in bright commercial posters, but in the children's own artwork, their own 100 languages made visible, where the teacher does not stand at the front of the room and instruct. The teacher sits beside the child and asks, what do you notice? What does that remind you of? What do you want to find out? Imagine parents who are not just dropping their children off and picking them up, but who are genuinely part of the school community, who contribute their skills, their knowledge, their time. The parent who is a gardener bringing seeds, the parent who is a musician bringing music, the parent who is a cook bringing food, the whole community woven into the fabric of how the children learn. Imagine children who arrive at school, real school, age 5, age 6, not burned out and compliant and afraid of getting things wrong, but curious, confident, full of questions, already knowing how to concentrate, how to collaborate, how to persevere, not because they were told to, but because they spent their earliest years being trusted to follow their own curiosity wherever it led. That is what Princess Catherine saw in Reggio Emilia. That is what she sat in the garden with the children to understand. That is what she was really doing when she held that newt in her bare hands and said, in London we have these too. She was not just charming an Italian crowd. She was learning. She was carrying something home. And Margie Cooper, of the North America Reggio Emilia Alliance, said something this week that I find deeply moving. She described those original mothers, the ones who sold the German tank, who carried the stones from the river, as women who understood that rebuilding after the worst thing imaginable begins with the children. It always begins with the children. Princess Catherine has faced the worst thing imaginable in her own life. She has fought cancer. She has looked at her own mortality and decided what her life is for. And she has come home from Italy with 70 years of proof that when a community puts children first, really first, not as a slogan, but as a structure, as a way of life, extraordinary things happen. I believe Princess Catherine is going to spend the rest of her career making Britain understand what Reggio Emilia has understood for 70 years. I believe the Foundations for Life program she launched just weeks ago is only the beginning. I believe this Italy trip, her first international visit since remission, taken alone, with purpose, with fire, is the opening move of something much bigger. And I believe that the children of Britain, children who are not yet born, children who will grow up in a country shaped by the work of a princess who refused to give up, will be the ones who feel it most. That is what Princess Catherine brought back from Italy. Not a souvenir, a mission. And she is just getting started. I am James Carter. This has been Royalty USA. If this story has made you think about the children in your own life, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, the children of your community, please leave me a comment and tell me, do you think Britain should do what Reggio Emilia does? I genuinely want to know what you think. Give this video a thumbs up, subscribe if you have not already, and ring that bell. We are here every week with stories that matter. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next one.